Zoom. Is we good to go live? And then it's say, hey, we're all ready. Be like, nope, you've been waiting too long. We've logged you out.
We're live on YouTube though.
There we go. The technical side, and make sure we're muted so we're not hearing ourselves. That's good. This thing will tell us now streaming live. We're there. Let's see, on the Facebooks is where we will start. And we got that, and we got this. And we will make those go away. And we got that, and we are there. Hello, hello, hello. Wait, that's my wife's line. She does the 3 hello thing, which is awesome. Mine is, hey, hey. I got to do that one. All right. Hey, hey. This is Sean with GoTennis and the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. We are, what is this, week 3, Justin? We're in week 3 with 10 minutes of tennis. And today's topic is the right racket for your game. So since we only have 10 minutes, we don't bother with pleasantries. Good morning, Justin. What is the right racket for my game?
I think it's really to decide what kind of game style you want to play. I've had many of amateurs come to me and say they want to learn this and they want to learn that. They want to be more of an all-round or add tools to their toolbox. And the first thing I'll look at is, okay, let's look at your tools. Let's look at your racket. If you've got a very powerful racket, it's not going to be easy to play an all-round player game. That can be argued both ways too. But if you look at the percentages of, if you're on the baseline 90% of the time, well, maybe you need a more powerful racket to drive, your ground strokes and take advantage. Then you can look at Federer, and I see my man, I've got the hat on, but he had a very thin beam, more player style racket. So again, I've out of my 36 years of coaching, I've actually headed more towards a player style racket for everybody, whether it be a junior or an adult, to teach them good habits of learning how to use their body, take away the power out of their hand and let them learn to feel the ball and control the ball and have plenty of variation. And, you can always go up into a more powerful racket and use all the tools that you have. But if you go the other way around, it's a lot harder to go from power to feel and touch, because you're so used to having that power in your hand. So,
and we were talking about this earlier, where I do the same thing, where I take that beginner player and say, okay, what's the heaviest that you can handle, the heaviest player's racket I can get you into, because it's going to force you to create your own spin. It's going to force you to create your own power. And we hand them that as a beginner. I think that's great advice. And coming up, we're going to talk to Arturo of Technofiber about some of those rackets. And if we're going to take that direction, what's a good way to do that? But most of the people that are going to watch this probably already play tennis. So are we too late? Like, oh no, I'm screwed. Like, there's nothing I can do because I already have my racket. I already have my game style. But do I really know my game style? And now I have a chicken and egg question. Is it too late to change my game? And do I go get the racket that I want the game? Like, do I go buy that Medvedev racket because I want his game? Is that the reason that, as an example, Technofiber is going to put it in those hands to say, this is the game style that you want to be? Here's a racket to help you get there?
Yeah, I mean, technology is always growing, and it's with all companies. They all have something competitive about the graphite and how the ball feels and how it's weighted and how the grip feels. But look, you need to sit with your coach. It's a very important relationship with your coach to say, this is my goal. This is where I'd like to be. Is the tool in my hand the right tool? I've found people with the grip too thick, and they can't learn to generate more out of their wrist because the grip's too thick. So they hit a very flat game and they can't generate more velocity of spin. Players, anyone that grew up in the 80s and 90s like myself, I mean, we were told, one finger, and now I'm 4 1/4 with an overgrip, and I used to be 4 1/2 with an overgrip. So the rules have changed, the world has changed, and you've got to really have a clear relationship or a coach with the knowledge as well. I've seen way too many coaches still teaching like it's in the 80s and 90s. knowledge is key. So, yeah, and I think same with the rackets, knowledge is key there as well. Like you've got to try out what feels good. A player style racket in Technifiber and a player style racket in Wilson could be totally different feel. So again, it's, building that relationship with coaches, building relationship with knowledge of string tension as well. Completely changes the racket, the way you hit the ball, the way you feel. I don't know if it's my own placebo effect, but I'm still at 62, 63 pounds because back in the days, that's what I used to be. And now I still swing away as hard as I can with my Federer racket. I'm 50 years old, no problem shoulder, no elbow issues. So it's, a lot of people have that issue too. They're like, wow, I've got elbow and I've got this. Well, have a good look at the body, your athletic base. And that's probably what's going to affect and help the shoulder.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that you don't seem to age like the rest of us, because I think what we end up doing is as we get older, we lower the tension. I need a little bit more. As we get older, we buy the larger head size. I'm not as fast as I used to be. So you being a terrible example of aging, we'll let that go. But
I'll understand that one, and I appreciate the compliment. But it's age driven or body driven, or what I'm saying is think about the player, but think about who you are and what you want to be. If you want to just improve some things, it could be you're exactly in the right racket. You just maybe change the tension, and work on what you need to work on to increase your toolbox. But if you're looking to reinvent a little bit and change some things up, and go from a heavy baseliner to a more all-around game, because we are seeing that now. People are coming to the net, and you need the mid-court now. A power racket can cause a lot of errors and make it harder on feel. So the change up might be there, and it might be very uncomfortable for about 6 months, but with the right coaching and the right direction, it all can happen.
So what's your advice if I'm in a racket that is for my style? Let's say I'm 45 years old. I'm talking about a friend, of course. I'm 45 years old and I'm starting to lower the tension to get a little bit more, because I'm still playing a lot of doubles. I'm still needing to hit the volley, but I need that feel at the net. Is there a potential of making that switch to say, okay, here's my target. I want to be better at the net, or you know what? I need to be at the baseline, whichever direction you're going to add that tool. I like you mentioned the toolkit of one of the other 10 minutes of tennis where we talked about the toolkit. The racket literally is the tool. So I'll ask again, trying to get a yes or a no kind of an answer. Which one is it? Do I go get a new racket for the game style, or do I maybe adjust tension first and try to work on the game style before I go get the racket?
Yeah, that's a small addition. He already has a game. He already can hit a volley, but he'd like to improve it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would look at whether your bum's out, like maybe athletically you're not in the right position and you could put more into the ball physically. And then obviously it could be loosen the wrist, could be grip too thick. It could be a whole bunch of things before jumping the racket, right?
Well, start with the coach and the technique, of course. If I'm just bad at tennis, let's pretend I'm okay at tennis. We've already gone through all that.
Yeah, that's a small addition. If someone came to me and said, I need to be better at my slice, I need better in defense, I need to be better at I'm going to come forward and want to attack, because all I do is hit big baseline shots, and in 4 shots it's in or out. I'd be like, okay, then let's maybe play with some different rackets, and see if that game helps with what you've got. So there's a whole bunch. I mean, I know we're coming up to 10, but if there was one huge advice after being a Tennis Australia certified talent development coach, I was always, and Technifiber was about to come on, but I'm about to explain, there is a huge gap when in junior development between the 24-inch and the 26-inch. I would find a lot of graphite rackets and I would cut them down to 25 to allow the junior to continue to develop their swing. Because 2 inches at that age is too far as I'm concerned. And it's too expensive for the guys to remodel and build another 25-inch racket.
Yeah.
But we've seen it in the 19 graphite. because juniors were developing earlier instead of the aluminum. So that would be my biggest pitch about racket choices juniors.
I like it. Well, let's bring in Arturo with Technifiber, and we will ask him that same question and see what Technifiber does to help. And Technifiber being the example, I know you and I, Justin, have a lot of experience with Wilson. But in this case, we've got the Technifiber expert that says, hey, here's what we have, here's what we're doing to get that. I know, and I'll just jump with the example, Arturo. Do you guys have a graphite 25-inch racket that isn't over $100?
Well, depends how much you want to sell it for. We actually,
aside from profit margin.
we have two. We have the T Fight and the Tempo. So both of those rackets come in 25 and 26 inches. In fact, we have a pretty strong Tempo that is 26 and a half as well. But yes, we do under 100. Again, it just depends how much that pro wants to sell it for, that store. But it's possible. I mean, that one usually retails for like 109. So you're not too far off. I mean, oftentimes you can go to a store and find 10, 20, 15% off on rackets. So, I mean, you should be around $100 though, to be honest.
Gotcha. So, but what do you tell somebody, and Justin and I have experienced this, as has everybody, especially if you're a parent, is, well, why don't I just go to Walmart and get the $15 25-inch racket?
Well, I would say, especially at the beginning as juniors, and all three of us have been coaches. Some of you guys still coaching. I used to be. If we put a kid on a racket that is just a terrible experience, they're not likely to come back. Or they're gonna come back as like once in a while when the weather is 65 degrees and sunny and beautiful, right? You know what I mean? Or those seasonal players. If we want our kid to become their sport, we got to give them the tools for them to have that. Yep. Kids, adults, and obviously we're just talking about kids right now, but that is the same when it comes to a beginner, right? If you bring him in and say, hey, go to Walmart, Dick's Sporting Goods, and just get a racket, often 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back with the wrong racket. Mm-hmm. Because they just don't have that. I mean, I was just listening to you guys on the podcast earlier from 10 on, and the coach is huge, right? Just having that relationship with a coach so that he or she knows your game firsthand, and he can help you develop that racket relationship, right? What do you need at the beginning? Maybe what you needed 2 years ago is not what you need anymore. And that's not just with high performance juniors, right? You can talk about someone that I know. I taught a lot of beginners that made it all the way up to 3.5, 4.0 level or even higher. Whatever racket I told them when they were beginning is not the same racket that I will tell them 3-4 years down the road when they were playing 3.0, 3.5, 4.0 level. So your racket sometimes has to change if your game improves in all those sort of things. But a coach is the go-to person that will be able to help you with that.
Yep.
And again, I also, obviously I'm in the business of selling rackets and strings. You don't have to go get the most expensive top of the line racket or string even, right? And again, that's where the coach comes in. You don't have to, let's say someone is beginning or look, I have an 8-year-old kid. I have 3 kids and my oldest is 8. Usually I wouldn't spend $150 on a racket for him because, he's an 8-year-old boy. I mean, nothing lasts more than a few months in his hand. So, but you don't necessarily have to go with a $25 racket that is going to be a terrible experience for him. Try to find a middle, maybe a secondhand racket. That's where the coach comes in. Maybe a racket that is discounted at the store after talking to your coach because it's last year's model. It's still great. If it's full graphite, one-piece racket at 25-inch, go for it, right? You don't have to go buy the best racket that just came out yesterday, right? You don't have that. If you have the means, go for it, right? If you like that and you can do that for your child or for your own game, hey, better for me, right? But you don't have to do that. Not everyone wants to spend over $100 for a kid racket or wants to spend over $100 for their first racket ever, right? If they are just beginning, there are ways that you can maneuver that and just sort of kind of go, again, the right coach comes into play a lot.
And what do you think? I know we do a lot of Technifiber. We do a racket exchange program with Tennis for Children, where if you bought a racket from us, we'll exchange a racket of similar value as your kid gets older or as your kid gets better. What do you think about Justin's, he mentioned earlier about cutting off 2 inches of the, I assume you're cutting off the bottom, not the top. Cut off 2 inches of the bottom of the handle to give him a full size feel, but cut off those couple of inches. That's clearly saving some money. Have you heard of that before, Arturo? That's new to me.
I honestly, I have not. I have heard the opposite of making a racket longer. But Justin, you said you're taking, explain that to me, because I wasn't sure if I got that right. So you take a racket that is 27 inches and then cut it down to 25?
Yeah,
Because of that graphite feel?
Yeah, graphite has got better over years in junior development rackets, but
Okay.
back in the days, for me, there was such a big gap between the 26-inch and the 24-inch.
Yes.
That development phase of a player is so huge. I would take an inch off a 26-inch and make it 25.
Okay.
So there wasn't a huge gap in the style of racket, but that inch difference helped the development of the swing and kept going. Whereas when you add 2 inches to a kid and a developing arm, you start to see the shoulder and you start to see them overswing and lose that efficiency and technique. And so I used to cut down, like I said, a 26 to a 25.
Gotcha.
And once they showed the development of that, I'd move to the 26.
That's perfect. Honestly, to your point, Justin, we, like, for example, Technifiber, we don't make graphite rackets below 25 inches. So if you're looking for someone that needs at 23 inches, for example, my 6-year-old, we don't have an option right now for him to have a full-size graphite racket.
Yeah.
So what you said, maybe taking a 25-inch and cutting it down to 24, 23 for him, that's a great, that's awesome. I might need to just come see you and cut off a 25-inch graphite. I don't trust myself to cut a racket. I don't trust myself to cut a racket. So, but I trust you, Justin.
It's very simple. You take the butt off, grind it off to the size, put the butt back on, screw it in and re-grip it. But but we got to think about the kid's hands only so small too.
Yes.
Obviously, most of my kids were single-handers, so we didn't have to have 2, but it really did help the development of allowing consistent technique clean, because 2 inches is a big jump.
It is. At that age, it's huge. I mean, which is why, I grew up with a full-size racket and adult balls.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a miracle that I like tennis, right? It really is.
Right.
How many kids were lost because of that?
There is still a massive argument that a kid should be in a 27-inch as soon as possible. There is, on the high performance level, I've spoken to many great coaches in Europe, and they're like, the sooner you can put him in a full size. And I'm like, great, well done, mate. You talk to the parents, and that child at age 20 to 28 with shoulder issues, hip issues, all the problems in the world, because he got to hit a little more power at a young age to be the best player. I mean, I've seen it over and over again. The injury issues in the age between 20 and 28 that ruin a player's, that's the prime time.
Yeah,
not
100%.
Freaking 8 to 12 years old, and you've got to put them in a big racket because
can we define as soon as possible? Like, let's make sure we agree on that, because as soon as possible has to include safety and long-term considerations, right?
Height, strength of the player, period. Then, if there's a very smart coach, he'd be actually trying to restrict it to allow the athletic base and the body to hit the ball versus the racket.
We put it off as long as possible.
Yes.
Put it off as long as possible.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm right on that, but for some reason I landed on that. Intellectually, for me as a human being, it made, outside of the tennis coach, it just made sense. Put it off as long as possible. Also, you're saving the parents $250 on their new Technifiber racket. I mean, we'll get them into the racket, but
2 of them. two of them, because they gotta have one.
That's true. We got that too. That's true.
Yes. No, for sure. I mean, it's the racket and the ball, right? Like I've seen many kids at 6-7-year-olds playing with regular balls or and we just have to delay that as long as possible.
And here's two other things real quick on that. Adult rackets don't have grips thin enough
for the kids
to learn and develop enough.
Yeah.
Secondly, the bigger the racket, the more the grip comes around towards Western. So
you got to drag it behind themselves. Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, you trying to have a long-term game or just like be the best junior with a big racket? So, I don't know. I can talk high performance as much as you can do. The internal rotation of the shoulder joint, they are developed now where the racket is perpendicular to the ground. I can't hit that. When I was a kid, it was always across the tabletop. My shoulder can't get that far anymore. Like, but the kids, like Kyrgios, his shoulder joint comes way down.
Yeah.
And by putting a too big a racket, there's just no way you can develop tools long term to where the game is. So, racket is massive subject. Knowledge of a coach, massive subject.
Yes, absolutely.
And then Arturo, handing them the rackets so they've got the right tools.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I mean, finding that right coach is so huge, right? But to that point, and I was just thinking about this earlier today, there are just too many Facebook groups out there that you don't have an excuse really to be like, well, I just don't have a coach. Like, go out there and find the information.
Yeah.
Talk with other people that are maybe already had kids, and don't just go and walk into a store with no knowledge, because it's possible that you end up and definitely don't walk to a Walmart, Target, or Dick's Sporting Goods looking for a tennis racket. If you do that, I mean, I cannot tell you, just my next door neighbor just texted me over the weekend, and he said, do you have a racket for me? Because he had started playing tennis like a year ago, and he went to Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever he went, and he said, every time I play, it's like this shaking throughout my body. Like the racket, every time I hit, the racket just shakes and rattles. And I just gave him a racket, and he texted me a couple of days ago, and he said, it's like the first time I played tennis. Like it was a different experience. And I know it takes time to educate, and some people are just not used to that, but I'm like, dude, as long as you play tennis, I don't care. I gave him my old racket. I was like, here's my racket. Just use it. If you don't like it, it's okay. I got other ones. Just please throw that other racket away. Like, just please do me a favor. And so, it's crazy how many people go through many years because they don't have a neighbor that is into tennis, right? So it's how do we get more people to understand that is a huge, huge part of playing tennis. Is maybe the most important part is the right racket to begin with. So
and I don't want to go too much on record right now, but please, I wish they would just disappear the aluminum racket.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Because it doesn't give them an experience. The racket is doing this in the hand, and we've seen it frame by frame that the frame twists, and the kids never really develop. And as soon as they hit the graphite racket, they go, "What the hell have I been doing?"
Yeah, so, I know, it's crazy.
And I can help Sean on this one. This is a great story. Every time a parent says, "Wow, why would I put a $60 graphite racket in the hand?" Right? Because you can get graphite rackets for about $60 if you look around, maybe 80 tops, but 60, 80 bucks. I turn to the guys and I say, "Well, tell you what, maybe if you sacrifice 10 to 12 days and no Starbucks, you can afford your child a graphite racket." Right?
Yes, 100%.
So, they turn to me and go, "What? Serious?" I'm like, 10 to 12 days. What's the investment worth? Your child or some coffee each day with sugar. I mean, come on. Like, it'll help your diabetes. It'll help everything.
Now, really made a friend.
It'll help your waistline, and you're just actually putting something that's more beneficial for your child.
100%. 100%. And same with your own racket as an adult, right? Like just when you think about it, I mean, $250, but again, you can go to your point, Justin, $250 is kind of the going rate. You can probably make that closer to like 150 to 200 if you look around.
Yeah.
But so you can do that. And also, like, when you think about giving up a coffee, for, well, for a month, right? Or for 2 weeks, it's not that big of a deal. I also like to, with the guys, some of the guys I used to coach, and they play golf, and they were like, kind of, well, I don't want to spend $250 on a racket. It's like, how many clubs do you have right now, golf clubs? And how much your golf club is worth like $2,000, and you don't want to give yourself one racket.
Yeah.
I'm just keep asking you for one racket. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
to your point, Justin, if you break it down into just don't go to Starbucks or don't eat out every weekend, right? Like, it's not,
Yeah.
you can get there quite quickly.
Yeah. And how far do you want to progress, and how soon do you want to get there? I mean, it's the American dream. Get me there quick. Come on, convenience.
Yes.
So have the right tool. It's
Yes.
just so simple. I
I
mean,
know.
I-
Trust your coach,
$250
trust your coach, and have the right to trust the coach,
Yeah.
and develop that relationship. And if you don't have a coach, give me a call. I'll help
I'm
you.
gonna say, call GoTennis, call any of us. We'll help you find somebody.
Yeah, coach relationship, absolutely crucial on racket choice. And one quick funny story is I live in $1 billion community, and I had a couple that came out to learn tennis, and they walked past their court and they bought two $30 Walmart rackets, 27-inch, and they're hitting away. And I said, okay, hang on a sec. You moved to Puerto Rico to save millions of dollars, and you want to buy two $30 Walmart rackets. Right? These guys, I won't tell you what company they are, but have a lot of coin. And they said, well, we weren't sure about the investment. We weren't sure how far we were going to invest in this. I was like, you're not going anywhere with those rackets.
But
Yes.
they don't, but let's give them a little grace. They had no idea. It wasn't as though they weren't being cheap. They might have just not understood the difference.
Yeah, my
Yes.
theory behind it is it doesn't matter how much you can afford. It's what people actually don't understand, the difference
Yes.
between an aluminum
information.
racket
Ah.
and those pressureless cheap balls versus regular $3
Oh.
can balls.
Just saying that hurts my elbow.
And learning how to feel the ball with proper strings and everything. Anyway, it was only 2 months in that they finally said, okay, Justin, show me the difference with a graphite racket and the ball. So I took them out for a demo lesson, and they went from not only ordering $250 rackets each, but 3 lessons a week. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, that's a big investment change, you know?
Yes.
And they're like, no, we love this. It's like, that guy specifically is now 4 years in lessons and is now a 4.5 player.
Well done.
So
That's great. I mean, that's a great story. That's a great story. I always go back to those people as to, like, well, do you want to have elbow and shoulder pain forever because you
100%.
put $30 into a racket instead of $200? I mean, just think about what pain is like. All of us, I'm sure we've been injured. And it's like when you have that injury and it's like hard to sleep or hard to pick up your kids or hard to just get out of the car or get out of bed, like that, again, you can just invest just a little more. You don't have to go to the top of the line, just a little more, and avoid that. Same with the strings. Don't go and get, a super stiff poly when you're a beginner or a kid, or even someone that is playing, weekend tennis, right? Like, do something that, again, the coach is so key here, right? Like the right racket, the right coach. Justin, to your point earlier, the right grip size. And that could either be, if it's too big, you can generate spin. If it's too small, it might give you tennis elbow. Like, you have to really spend some time looking into that. And so, to your point, Justin, if they could disallow aluminum racket, especially like in these places like oh my goodness, it will do so good for a game. It will do so good for a game. It will just, people will actually play more.
Yeah.
So
Mike Burrell would kill me right now because he'd say, I want rackets in every kid's hand. So it doesn't matter if it's aluminum or whatever. Yep. But my theory on a performance perspective and long term for a kid that really wants you hit it right on the nail, Atero. The first experience is what keeps a kid going. And if you get the graphite racket, like a 19-inch that Bablat designs, I don't know about anyone else, but they were one of the first to make a 19-inch graphite racket. You get that in the kid's hand, they're never going to pick up an aluminum racket again.
Yeah.
You know, and not only that, the earlier they're learning velocity, racket head speed, drive, power, feel. You just can't compare the two.
No, I'm actually going to go to Technifiber and gonna cut off some 25-inch rackets.
There you go.
Make a bunch of
There you go.
19, 21, and 23 rackets out of our
There you
stock.
go.
I like it. I like it. Well, guys, I appreciate the time, and let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I
Have a great
appreciate
day,
it.
guys. Keep up the good work.
You got it. Thank you, guys.
Have a good Tuesday.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.